There could be any time now. Good, we're being live streamed. Just going to check in here. Oh yeah, we're on. Great. Hi, Helen.
Hi, Andrew.
Oh, it's great to have you today. So just to say hi to everybody who's listening in, and just to say a couple of things before we dive into Helen. Sorry about having to postpone Shay's talk last week or the week before. Major technical problems this end, no Wi-Fi. But Shay will be with us soon. We'll get that rearranged. And also, I just wanted to let people know, because I do it all the time and I don't tell people, if I'm looking down, it's because I'm making notes. It's not because I'm being rude to the guests. And if I look up here, I can see what's going on in the group, just in case people can't hear and things like that. But good. Hi, Lola. I can see Lola's there saying hi, so that's good. So that's why I do those couple of things. So we've got the amazing Helen Moore today. And so this is the wonderful thing, right, about us all connecting and collaborating, because we both know the amazing Andrea Breen, of course. And it was through Andrea that she said, "You got to speak to Helen." And I just love that. So we spoke, and it was just amazing. And it's a shame we didn't record what we chatted about last time, really, when we got together. But we're going to go through these things. Right. So great. Well, Helen, tell us a little bit about you then before we start, so people know a little bit about you.
Okay. Well, I was born and raised in Ireland. In 2008, I came to Canada to finish off some nutrition studies. I'd started in Ireland studying holistic nutrition and got the opportunity to come to Canada. So I thought I would come just for 12 months to study, and that was 13 years ago. So the intention was to study holistic nutrition and work with humans, which I did for a little while after I graduated. But honestly, I got kind of dismayed and a bit lost. And I thought, oh, I don't know if I've done the right thing. I don't know if I really want to do this, because I found a lot of people wanted a quick fix. Like, they wanted me to tell them that this supplement, if they take it, was going to help them feel better or lose some weight or do something, but they didn't really want to do the work that was required. And I get that. I'm a little slow when it comes to creating new habits, but I was kind of dismayed, not really sure where to go. And then I got a dog, my first dog as an adult, my responsibility. He was a cute little Australian Shepherd collie mix called Seamus. And he came into my life and just upended it essentially and changed the trajectory of everything. And for the first few weeks he came in, he had really bad digestive problems, really nasty diarrhea. And I took him to the vet and we went through a round of, metronidazole, and we did prescription foods and all that sort of stuff for 3 or 4 weeks, and he wasn't getting any better. So I had a moment where I was like, well, what are you doing here? You just spent the last, 12 months studying holistic nutrition. You have to be able to figure out something for this dog. So I started digging and I found a raw feeding community and I did some research. Honestly, I didn't really know what I was doing at all at that point. But I started to mix up some foods, just very simple, like ground chicken with some pumpkin and some slippery elm and a few things like that. And he had a solid poop within 12 hours of that. So I went back to my vet and I was all excited and I was like, look what I did. And they were like, no, you can't do that. That's dangerous. And I was like, but why is it dangerous? And they couldn't give me anything but, nope, that's dangerous. So I went through a bunch of vets and found one that was willing to work with me. And Seamus, within a few weeks got really healthy in terms of his digestion. And that kind of was like, okay, I'm going to forget the humans altogether, because the dogs will just, they'll eat, they won't complain, they just do. And he healed really fast. So I thought, I'm going to go and focus on dogs now. So it kind of trickled into that. And I would walk Seamus around my neighborhood. I was living in the beaches area of Toronto, and there's really nice places to walk. And I would just get chatting to people. And before I knew it, I was dog walking in my neighborhood. I would watch everyone around me, and I thought, oh, I don't like what I'm seeing. So, okay, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it better than everybody else. So I really went on a mission, and I seemed to just attract what we would call the problem dogs, you know, the reactors and the socially awkward ones. So it was kind of my determination to help Seamus and help all these guys that were coming to me to have like a better life, because I saw those dog walkers who would walk the reactive dogs, and they'd be by themselves and they'd just be skulking around the neighborhood, you know, hiding behind cars and things. And I thought, I think we can do better by these guys. So I started to work with them and then build little kind of friend groups, because I never took more than 3 dogs at a time. I had no interest, you know, in taking out a lot of dogs. I just wanted a small group, and we would go off and investigate and, you know, have adventures around the neighborhood. So it was just so nice to see, because, you know, these dogs, I think, get labeled and then they're kind of taken away from everything. You know, it's like, oh, you're not good with these, so we're just going to keep you out of, you know, the neighborhood at certain times, and you're not going to interact with everyone. And that just made me sad to see that, because Seamus also had some reaction problems, you know, that we were working through. And I was like, I don't want to be that person, you know, out skulking around the laneways after dark in fear of what my dog might do.
I think it's really interesting hearing a lot of people's stories I talk to, and I always like to start this way, because I think it's good for other people, especially other trainers, to hear other people's journeys into things. And we'll come on to your kind of amazing time with Turid in a moment, and that big leap that you took into the more emotional centered way of looking at things. But it's interesting that you had so many transferable outlooks and skills from going into the human area first, and then thinking, well, yeah. And actually, it's interesting hearing a lot of the things you said there, because they, you know, the thing about compliance and the difficulties of connection, that kind of thing, we can see the same in our industry, right? I think it's very similar. But also having your own dog in Seamus, you know, because I know with mine, you know, Milo was my soul dog really, and I learned so much through him, and I learned so much about the authenticity of the individual dog by having him as my mentor really. So it's really important that we recognize how important some of these early experiences are as we come into these things, because they help to give us that bit of a world view, don't they, about how we might go about doing things. We're going to have a little chat about the work you do with puppies in a bit as well, because I think that's just really amazing, and how you have structured your puppy classes. I do that because they're just so different, and I think they're a real inspiration. And also looking at whole dog health as well, because you've alluded to that a little bit already. We're going to look at that. But when we think about then coming into looking at dogs in this very much more holistic, rounded way, Turid was a big influence for you. When you went into that, did you already kind of have a notion that you wanted to do things a bit differently? You know, what got you attracted to kind of going to see Turid in the first place? Or was it a case of, I don't know much about this, it seems interesting, I'm going to go and have a look?
So by the time I got to Turid, I had gone through a few different things. So as I mentioned, like Seamus was reactive to different things, not particularly dog reactive, he was just reactive. And I realized, but also we can come back to this in a little while, because I'm very passionate about the exercise and activity and trying to educate people in that side of it, because I was that person who had this very athletic collie shepherd who loved to play fetch, and he was the dog that people were videoing because he would jump so high in the air and catch things and twist and turn. And my whole body has a reaction now, because I'm like, oh, it makes me sick to think of the damage I did to this dog, you know, which is, all of us have been there. But so yeah, so he was reactive due in a lot to the exercise I was doing with him every day. Like, it was really excessive for his size and his age. But I was green, and I believed that, you know, a tired dog is a happy dog. How often do we hear that? And because I was having these problems, people around me kept saying things like, he's a working breed, he needs to be busy, you're not doing enough, you're not doing enough. So I was just doing more and more and more, and things just got worse, worse, worse. So I went to a local training class in my neighborhood because somebody was like, oh, go here. But it was in a tiny little basement downstairs. It was like martingale collars and leash corrections and things like that. And I was lucky in that Seamus, being the herder and the compliant dog that he was, he just did a lot of the stuff. But his face, like, I just knew, I was like, this just feels so wrong. And I had done that type of training when I was maybe 12 or 13 years old with our family German Shepherd. I remember the choke chain and the, you know, give them a little pop when they do it. So yeah, it just felt wrong. And he would do mostly everything, but I always remember the thing that kind of did it for me was to teach them to sit, to lay down. We would have to put them in a sit and then kind of hook our fingers in around the collar and push them down. And he would literally push back with everything that he had, like, no. And I was like, I don't want to force this. But the narrative was, he's dominating you. You have to make him do this. And I was like, I just, you know, it felt so bad, but I didn't know what the alternative was at that point. So he graduated through that class, like, because he was just good, and he was good at doing what he was told. But the problems outside of there didn't change in any way, shape, or form, because we were just learning the obedience commands. So then I met someone in my neighborhood who was going through the training to be like a clicker trainer. So we started to do some work, and we did see some little shifts and changes in certain areas, but in the explosive ones where he would just go off on something, or having to cross a busy intersection, something like that, like all the treats in the world weren't going to help him. Like, he just had no interest in anything in terms of food. And then I was just kind of lost, and I cried a lot. There was a lot going on, and I know that there was stress because of stuff that was going on in our lives. And I was just like, I don't know what to do. So I have a deep spiritual practice that I've had for a number of years. So I was like, okay, let's just throw it out there. And I was like, I know that there has to be something better. There is something better here, and we're going to find it. And of course, I don't know how long it was from that moment, but a flyer popped up for Turid, and it was saying that she was coming to the North America to do the first ever international dog training over here. And I had heard of her, but not so much. So I started to do some research, and I was like, okay, this sounds, as someone might say, a little woohoo. And I'm all about the woohoo and out there. And the more there it is, I'm usually more into it, you know? So I was like, this is it. And I was like, I had no money. I didn't know how I was going to get there or what I was going to do, because my own personal life in the background had kind of imploded at that point. And I was on my own with the 2 dogs. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do this. So I managed to scrape together the registration money, which was like $500. And then things just started falling into place. They were like, oh, you're an international student, so you get a discount. And oh, there's this lady who said she'd love to host you when you fly up and down. So I was like, okay. So I flew up and down to North Carolina for like 7 trips, I think, over a year. And the first weekend I got there, it was just like, this woman just blew my mind. Like, everything that I thought I knew, she completely flipped it on its ass. And I was just like, oh, this is so simple. Like, what? So that's how I got to Turid. And then everything just kind of flowed from there. And life changed drastically for us from then. And Seamus became a completely different dog. Like, he honestly did a whole 180.
And what was the main things that you took from that learning process that you went through into the practical way that you dealt with and supported Seamus? What are the main things that you really shifted around?
So The exercise was one of the first ones. She told us that first weekend that she wanted us to get rid of all the ball throwers and the frisbees. And she talked about the stress response and what was happening in the brain and the body. And as she was talking like that, I was like, oh my God, no wonder this poor dog was yelling at her neighbor when she wore a big sun hat, or screaming at the kids when they ran too fast. Like, I could understand where he was in his mind. Like, literally his brain was fried essentially, because I had him playing fetch, if not every day, sometimes twice a day, you know? So the poor guy was living in such a state of over arousal. Of course, he couldn't cope with just things that were happening in and around him. It just made so much sense to me. So I completely stopped that when I came home. And I bought a Hacky Hana harness and a long leash when I was there. And when I got home, we just slowed right down, and I just let him out on the leash. Because the thing is, as many people can relate, when you have a reactive dog, your instinct when things are happening is to curl it really tight and kind of pull them in as close to you as possible, without realizing that, of course, they're going to be nervous. You've just told them there's something to be nervous about, right? By your tension, the tightness on the leash. So giving him a long leash and just letting him explore and go wherever he wanted was just a game changer. Even if I'd learned nothing else, that would have been a game changer. So for this Norwegian woman to tell us just to slow down and shut up and just watch for a little while, it was like my world just opened up, and so did his.
I think there's a couple of things that are really interesting about you sharing that, and also what you shared when you were talking about what you experienced when you first had that experience with Turid. It's just how much sense it made. And I think this is something for us all to remember, especially our colleagues who are looking to make more of a shift to a care-oriented approach, looking to look at things. They're already seeing things a bit differently, but they might be a bit wary about shifting things over and moving away from more of a heavy reliance on an operant toolkit. Is listening to people like yourself say, actually, for me, it made a lot of sense. For my dog, I could see the difference. Because when we work with our clients, they will as well. Now, the thing that stops us, of course, when we first start this process is, will I be able to match those expectations and those needs by looking at getting them to look at their dog's needs more? But actually, instinctively and almost exclusively, people do, as long as we frame it right. I think that's important. And especially this notion that, especially with the high drive, high energy dogs, that somehow the answer is to train more. Many of them, they need less training, right? And more listening to. I think that's what you found with Seamus, for sure.
For sure. And just understanding them too as dogs, right? That was a huge part. Like, one thing about Turid is, like, she really wants you to be a skilled observer, and she has you studying everything: sit studies, pee studies, stress studies, sleep studies. Like, you are learning to watch them and learn about breeds. Like, we compiled a massive amount of information from breed studies. Like, who are these dogs? What would they be doing if they were doing what they were supposed to? And most people that are bringing certain dogs, like working breeds or high drive dogs, into their house, they don't all know about these instinctual traits, and they don't understand how that translates to living in their environment. And then they are the very things that we are getting contacted for, right? Problem behaviors, but who are they a problem for? Not the dog.
Yeah. And also, who is dog? It's the same when people say people want this and people are saying that. Who are the people? Who are people? Because we're just a group of individuals. And I think it's the same with dogs. And, if anybody hasn't read it yet, of course, Kim Brophy's book, Meet Your Dog, really good resource, especially for carers, to read more about the dog's breed and its implications for their particular dog. But then to be able to go on and see their dog as an individual on top of that. And you got Turid, Sheila Harper, Sarah Fisher. There's many people who give opportunities for great learning regarding observations. And I don't know about you, Helen, but I think it's an area we need more education on, I think, for our more education to be available for our colleagues in the community, to understand what really good observation is about.
Yes, and especially for pain, right? Because I'm sure you know, and my business partner and one of the girls that works for us had a conversation the other day about how knowledge is such a terrible thing sometimes, because you can't put your blinkers on. And like, I see so many dogs that are uncomfortable and in pain. And I know from maybe Cam or Amber Batson had one of Daniel Mills' studies, you know, about 80% of those clients presenting to behavior professionals were in pain. And that's such a massive thing I feel we're missing, especially in like the setting of a dog training class. You know, like I got to go to one once because I was bringing a friend's dog to their class while she was on vacation. And I was excited to go just to kind of spy and see what was going on there. But there was one dog there who just wouldn't sit. And from where I was looking, he couldn't sit because he was so uncomfortable and he wasn't able to. But nobody saw that. The solution was to just keep feeding him treats to keep him in that position, you know? And it's like, we need to be looking at the entire dog, because there's so many other things to look at, like how are they moving? What is their poop like? You know, their meal habits, all those things, they're all little clues to what's going on. And that's why as professionals, we need to widen the scope of, you know, what we're learning about, because we can't just look at that behavior that we're trying to change or get rid of.
100%. And I think it's the little things that we learn through good observations on a wide kind of criteria of observations that tell us way more than the big stuff. You know, the big stuff like lunging, barking, growling tells us the dog's stressed, tells the dog's not coping, but it's the little things that give us a bigger part, the bigger picture really. And you're absolutely right. Once that genie's out of the bottle, when you know more, you see it everywhere. And I think we've got a crisis on our hands actually. When you just go out on a general walk, I think we have physical pain and emotional pain, and we just see a huge amount of dogs that are experiencing either or both of these things. And especially this notion of the ability to express self, our current self, through our behavior. There's a risk of overwriting that with a big operant approach, and then we start to lose some of that information then. Because I've worked with dogs where things have happened and the dog's going straight into some kind of fixed behaviors because that's what they've been trained to do. Oh, I'm going to do this now, I'm going to do that now. And we've had to wait a long time for that to stop happening. So we can actually see, oh, actually the dog is now going to do something that's more authentic for them now. But that first bit, they're so heavily wired to do things that isn't authentic for them. So you can't really do an observation on that dog as well, because they're not actually giving an expression of self now. They're just doing what they think we want them to do.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the thing. And the great thing is about when Turid was teaching us about how to evaluate dogs, it was always in an enriched environment setting, because that's where you could watch their authentic selves. You know, they're not, because most people when they contact me, they will be like, oh, can you come to my house and do this? And I much prefer to get them into the scent den, because the dog tells you so much, you know, and the people are going to have their version of it. So it's nice to get the dog in there and to watch and to see how they are being, because that tells you everything you need to know. Like, how curious are they? How are they moving? What's the relationship with these people to the dog, you know? And there's a lot of things that people don't even notice about their dogs until they're in there and you're kind of asking them questions, you know, do you see how they did that, or how they did that? And they're like, oh, I never realized that, or, you know.
This is a great little segue into the scent den, right? Because this is going to be great. We can talk about the puppies a little bit now. And you're absolutely right. So I use a lot of free work, Sarah Fisher's free work. If you aren't sure of that, look it up. Sarah Fisher's Facebook group is Ace Connections. Highly recommend anybody joining that. It's really good, especially for observational, especially for looking for observational around pain and discomfort. It's a really cool group, as is CAMS, as you say, Hannah Capon with CAMS. Professionals, anything Amber Batson does is great.
Also, those guys, sorry, I don't know if you heard me.
Yeah, sorry, Helen.
Gallon myotherapy. So Julia Robertson and her team. So as part of our education with Turid, we were lucky that she brought in all these different teachers for us. And Gallon myotherapy was, yeah, definitely such an amazing one. They do a great foundation course for carers, you know, where you can learn to assess your own dog, learn about signs of pain, different things like that. So that's a great resource too.
Brilliant, and it's something that's on my list for me to learn more about, and I think
yeah, Julia would be a great
get her in as a guest. Okay, brilliant. So the scent den. So give us a little bit of background to that and how it came about, how you use it for good observations, and then take us nicely into how you do your puppy classes.
Okay. So yeah, we took on this space. We have a retail store and the space behind us came available. So we wanted to set something up, you know, to have these evaluations for behavior and stuff and some sort of enrichment space, but we weren't really sure what to do there. So we're lucky enough that Kirsty Grant from the Dog Knows, she's one of our PDT colleagues. She really helped us out. So Christine, my business partner, and I flew to the UK in 2019, I believe it was. Time has just not gone. So probably 20 years ago, we flew to the UK and Kirsty took us to her space in Swindon. And we got to see it there and we talked about how we could do things. So she was instrumental in us setting up in Toronto. So there was nothing like this here. So we opened the scent den, and it's a little space that is just filled with all sorts of different interesting, fun things for dogs to explore and taste and walk on and experience. And for the first year or so, we just did guided sessions. So I was in there with people. And then once they did that, they could come back and rent it by themselves. And the reason we did it that way was because you notice when you're in there. So the whole idea is, you know, you come in and I liken it to them as the practice of non-interference. But it's so difficult for people. Like when I was sitting in there, I'd see them and the dog and they'd be like, no, come over here. And I'd be like, no. So it's very difficult for people not to want to encourage their dogs to do something or not to do something. And I'd be like, you just need to just watch. That's your only job here. And I would make them a cup of tea and they would just sit there. And it was fascinating for them. Like people were like this because they never, people in our professional realm probably do, but most people don't just sit and watch their dogs. Like you're taking them on a walk, or there's a purpose to something you're doing. It's not just let's just watch and see what they're doing here, because you'll be on your phone or something. And it's so good for people to watch their dogs and how they interact, and especially when they're, say, nervous of something. Like there's a little rocking horse and a lot of them would be nervous, and you know, they'd stretch their whole body out to get as close and then kind of come back. But then by the end of the time, they would trot up to it all confident. And it was just in 45 minutes, you could see the most terrified, anxious dog just blossom into this, you know, confident, I can handle this space, and they just feel really good about themselves. So for people to be able to watch that unfold was really good. So I love to get the kind of behavior coaching started that way, because the other side of it is they tend to see after the session, like for that evening and the next day, the dog definitely has kind of come down a notch or two. And the feedback we would get from carers for senior dogs was that some dogs that paced at night or had that, you know, early onset of cognitive kind of dysfunction come on, all their restlessness and pacing would kind of decrease or disappear for 24 to 48 hours. So there was just so many cool little things that happened in there, you know, and it's pretty amazing because it's just, again, it's so simple.
Actually, by the way, I love this practice of non-interference. I just love that. It's just a great little buzz thing, practice of non-interference. But also what we've talked about trying to get caregivers to buy into, to move away from a task-oriented approach to more of a care-oriented approach. Their own dog will tell them what they need to know if they're given the opportunity to look into these things. And they can see, people might think, oh, my dog struggles in novel environments, for example. Actually, what you can then show is actually your dog struggles to process things in a novel environment. But given the time and space, I wrote a piece today about time and space, actually, they can, when they're processed in their own way. And I noticed Sindor's put a little comment in. Hi, Sindor, great to see you. Sindor's coming to join us in the group soon, which is going to be amazing.
That's going to be a fantastic one. And she has been instrumental too, because Sindor and I attended the same teaching with Turid in Asheville. And she was able to bring us all the stories and the information and the research she was doing from the street dogs.
Yeah, well, that's the point I was going to make. And this is why these conversations are so important from multiple people. This is the point. No one person has the answer to this stuff. It's a case of all of us coming together. And when I spoke to Sindor recently, and she was sharing about the street dogs and how they give themselves the space and time to process, and how they kind of check things out that are a bit scary, and how they go through a kind of a self-regulatory elevation decompression. You see that in your scent den, don't you? With the dogs being allowed the time to go through that without the mom or the dad wanting to dive in and go, I've got to help my pup, but actually just letting them go through it.
Yeah, and it's like, I have some amazing videos of like literally shaking and that stretch to just, puffed out almost by the end of it. And it's just, it's so nice to see, because I feel for those anxious dogs and those stressed dogs, because, people are trying to they don't know what to do with them. So they kind of go to avoidance because they're trying to keep everyone safe, right? And I was that person too. But it's so lovely when you can bring them into that and, give them ideas and tell them how they can sort of create this sort of stuff, or, do it for them at home. It's so valuable.
Yeah, it is. And I think quite emotional, I would think, for many of them.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I've had a few people who get a bit overwhelmed because, well, it's an emotional journey just to have a dog who has serious anxiety or stress, right? Or reactivity as we know it. Like for me, that was a roller coaster, because I was constantly on edge before I went out the door. Like, oh, is the bus going to pass? Or is so-and-so going to be out in their garden? Or is something's going to happen? And that stress obviously is transferring. So you're just stuck in a cycle. So for them to be able to go into this safe space and just sit and relax and see their dog be a dog essentially, or be able to do these things without any distraction or any interference from anything else is so nice for them. And just give them the permission to slow down. I think I noticed that from a lot of people, because as you said, people have an expectation when they're coming to see us that, they're going to get this training plan and they have to find a certain amount of time to put in and do these certain tasks. And I think there's a great sense of relief when they come to see us, because I'm like, no, I want you to shave all of this back and actually to do much, much less. And that's always like, oh, they can't really wrap their brains around it. And for me, it was the same, because we're very much focused on the physical, right? Because if the dog's not moving or doing something that's, high exertion or traveling a great distance, like what's the point really? And that's the big hurdle for a lot of people, I think, especially in behavior cases, because when you're looking at the really stressed guys, we usually do like a period of rest and recovery, and that depends very much on the dog. And I'll often get emails in that time like, oh, but don't they need to be getting this much exercise? And people can't reconcile that slowing down and doing way less can be somehow good for the dog.
And that is a big thing, I think, even for other professionals to consider sometimes, that actually, like you said earlier, this notion that a tired dog is somehow a happy and content dog. That all needs to kind of be unpacked for people, and especially people who have dogs from a working style background. And when I've got a collie myself, and I think the notion of a collie working in an environment that is pretty fixed, without too many distractions, with a very one specific job, is very different to a dog who's been expected to cope with tons of extra sensory input in a day, ahead of doing anything else they might do. And for those dogs to have a chance at coping with all that extra sensory information, we need to invite them to be better at processing it, which has to be about slowing things down. It just does. So your scent den, really helpful for dogs to give people chance to see their dog, and for you to do that kind of little narration over what you're seeing. And I love Sarah Fisher when she talks about question mark. So it's like, oh, do you see that there? We're going to put a question mark over that. Oh God, we saw it again. Right, so maybe this is a thing for this dog. And you just start to join the dots, which is great. The big thing I love about it is how you've incorporated this whole outlook regarding how you bring puppies into things, and what you do with the puppies. What one thing we'll do, Helen, is I'll get you to, if you're happy to share some images that I can put in the group at some point, so people can visualize what the den looks like, Yeah. So tell us a bit about how you do this with the puppies, because of course this is really exciting, and actually some of the things we talked about last time, as you know, I've got Molly, our little rescue pup. We're taking things slow, of course, but there's been some adaptations that I've made even from my conversation with you, because I thought that was really cool. So yes, tell us about how you're utilizing the scent den for your puppy experiences, I guess, rather than classes.
We did start originally with classes pre-pandemic, but not long before, so we didn't get to do that, but that was still good. We did get through like one full round with 4 puppies, I think. So from when we were letting people in, it was really good, because again, it was in the space, they were kind of positioned, there was only 4 of them, so each carer was in a corner, and then there was I'd set up certain things for the dogs in the middle, and again, that was me really trying to get them to just watch and to resist, because anytime the dogs did anything, they're like, no, they wanted to stop them or fix that behavior. So that was great to just get them to just take the time and to be like, just let them figure this out. Just let them have this little experience on their own. So that class was really good. I would change the format probably a little, because what we did was we would meet, but we would have a topic for the time we were there to discuss. And I think that might have been a bit too much. I think if I did it again, I'd probably separate the learning part for the humans and maybe offer that to them virtually or something. And then when we come together, it's just all about the observing and the learning and maybe answering some questions. Because people, they learn so much, like even simple things like understanding like play and vocalizations, because I'm sure you've noticed with puppies, like they sound like they're little scrappers, like they're tearing each other apart. And a lot of people panic and they interfere and they break that up straight away. Whereas it's like, they make noise, they do make noise when they play. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Like we can see when it's too much for somebody, and we obviously will intervene, but just getting them to not jump in always, or if they put something in their mouth, not wanting to grab it straight away, because that's just our natural reaction is, oh, panic, right? And I think it's in those little moments that we take away so much from them, that we don't give them that little second to, okay, maybe you pick something up and put it in your mouth, but a second later you decide, oh, this is not something I can eat, and you drop it, right? Whereas people go, oh no, and go to grab it. So next time you find something, let's just swallow it even quicker, because they're coming for it. And it's very difficult, it's hard.
Some of the footage that I think, I don't know whether you shared it with me or whether I saw it on your timeline or on your website, I can't remember, but it was really cool to see the puppies, multiple puppies in this space. And if you think about a traditional, say, village hall, which is very static, it's very empty, it's very kind of kind of inspiring for the pup. The big thing is the other dogs, right? Whereas in your scent den, the pups are like, oh, there's a pup there, but I'm doing this at the moment, or I'm processing that. And sometimes they'll engage, but some of the footage I saw was amazing, just seeing the puppies passing each other to try and explore and find something else. It was just really cool.
And the other good thing, just like the adult dogs who are a little nervous or overwhelmed, we've had dogs come in who literally for the first one maybe hid under the couch, you know, and that was fine because I'm on the floor with them all the time, so I'm using hand signals and different things to make sure nobody is bothering this little nervous one. And it's great just allowing them to watch from there and then slowly watching them creep out. And then one puppy I remember was terrified, and then by the end was just running the joint, you know, like, because they're, as you said, it's not all about play and, you know, running around, which I think a lot of puppy socials, as you said, it's an empty room. They just come together, everyone goes nuts, and then they go home. So then they go out and they think, oh, when we get together, this is all we do. We just go crazy. Whereas in there, they're exploring together, they're finding food together. And you might have seen some of the footage, like there's always giant chews and giant bones and things like that. And I remember one of the first socials we did, and the social was when we changed the format, because during COVID, we couldn't have people into the space. So we offered them a puppy social where they would bring the puppy to us and I would be in the scent den with them, and they would spend 45 minutes together. But there was one who at the beginning was really kind of guarding all the treats and the food, but we just managed the space. And by the end of it, I have video of her and another little dog at either end of a bully stick. So like they learned to share and they learned about social eating, and they played for a little bit, but then they came back to do something else. So it wasn't all that crazy running around where everyone just gets so over aroused and there's a meltdown, you know? It's more about, okay, we can be together, but we can be calm together.
And I think allowing a very authentic way to observe puppies like that supports a lot of the stuff that we're talking about. When we think about Laura Donaldson talking about kind of cognitive reappraisal, when we think about the wonderful team over at the Slow Dog Movement, what Sindor's bringing, all these kind of different things. I see it with my own pup Molly. I just see it. There's two Mollys, right? There's the Molly when she has too much of an elevation and that puppy brain really kicks in and she's now unavailable to any reason or sense, right? But also, and anybody with a puppy will know the other side, when she's very present and she's mindful and she's working stuff out and she's processing things. And like Kathy Murphy, our neuroscientist chum, says, Mother Nature has equipped, well, all animals, but we're talking puppies, with the right neurology for that right time in life, right? As long as it's able to do things in its own way and not to be flooded or put into very fearful situations and that kind of thing. And so I see it with my own pup, and I think back actually to a lot of my clients I've worked with in the past with their pups who seem to be in that kind of unavailable puppy brain a lot, to think about the extra stresses that were there for that dog all the time to keep that elevation. Mm-hmm. And to see these dogs who have had very little life experience, right? They've had very little chance to have a lot of learned behavior. We go on about that all the time, learned behavior, but you know, these are just dogs being a pup and having an environment where they can explore and you know, all the different senses, including things like proprioception, all these wonderful things. I've noticed with Molly, we went to see a friend recently, and just seeing how she navigated this new environment beautifully. And I think it's because we've given her a chance to mooch a lot. You know, a lot of our walks are just moochy walks where she can just feel the environment, not hairing through it. You know?
Yeah, a lot of our walks are moochy walks too. I like that one. I don't know if that's a word from England, Ireland, because I say that a lot and people are like, they're what around? They're moochy.
Yeah, so there's a gift to all our other friends around the world. A mooch. Let's go for a mooch, right? So when So with the COVID times, then the caregivers weren't present, but the dogs were still in the environment.
No, so they would drop them off. They would come into the store. They'd kind of hang around, mooch around the store for a little bit, you know, and then we would make our way to the back into the scent den where it would be set up for them. And then, yeah, they just, whatever they wanted to do. And I would take little videos throughout so I could post them afterwards. That's probably what you were seeing. So the carers could see what was happening, you know, and I could tell them about different things and maybe things to keep an eye on or things to do at home. But yeah, it was really valuable during COVID because we had the explosion of puppies here too. And a lot of people didn't know what to do with them.
And actually, I think some of the more traditional approaches, when we think about the pressures and expectations for young pups about, you must go to a training class, you must get your dog to learn, sit, come down, stay, all the kind of things that we do.
The program.
The programs, yeah. Having spent time with Molly and seeing how much time she actually needs and benefits from to process, how much we take away from the dogs at that point in their development, actually, by shoving a lot of stuff in that doesn't actually have any internal value to them.
Yes, and doesn't actually stay too long either, right? Because
no.
I just was lucky enough to do Amber Batson's Puppy Power course, and she was talking about how, you know, at around 9 or 10 weeks, they can only retain bits of information for 10 to 15 seconds, and then it's pushed out for something else. So she was asking us to consider, like, imagine the church hall where you've brought your young puppy and there's noises and people and sounds and smells, which is going in and out of the brain. And then you're like, sit down, stay, like they can't retain that because the environment is not conducive to that learning experience, you know? So yeah, it's so important for us to understand like the benefit of, I always say to people, I was like, just go and sit on a grassy knoll somewhere, you know, just don't underestimate the power of just sitting and being with them, say in your environment, like in your local environment, when you have a puppy, they're taking in so much information. They're learning a lot about the environment. They're processing everything, and you're giving them the time and the space and the quiet and the calm to do it. Because again, people have it in their head, I've got a puppy, and here's how the list goes. I got to get a crate. They got to be enrolled in socialization. Then it's obedience 1, obedience 2. Then maybe it's agility, flyball, and they're like overscheduled children. And we have it in our heads that the measure of a good dog is one that is obedient or knows how to do what it's told. And yeah, we really need to shift. For me, I wish I want to take the focus off the dogs altogether. I want to be like, okay, it's the people who need to do the training, you know, like we need to update our knowledge around dogs and what it is to be a dog and how they perceive the world and how their brain is growing at different stages and how some of the most common things that are in the program we've been working for the last 20 or 30 years are in fact taking away from their ability to thrive and blossom and just their ability to, you know, live a peaceful life.
And I think there's a lot of things that we've done, the perceived wisdoms about what we do at a young age, that actually is feeding into problems that then we have to try and fix. So I look at Molly and, you know, when she's on a harness, of course, and she doesn't pull on the lead because we've given her a chance to mooch. We've given her a chance to mooch. We found good areas off leash where she can have a mooch. We have a longer line so she can have a mooch. So when we're actually walking, she walks at a nice pace. She's at that kind of space. And when I look at how she processes people socially, she told us quite early on that she really likes to sniff. She likes to sniff and move on with people for sure. So we're quite firm with people who want to come and be with her to give her a chance to sniff. So we don't get the jumping up. If somebody puts too much social pressure on her, we get the jumping up. So I think it's just a case of unpacking some of this stuff and rethinking what we do. And we know this stuff, right? We know this stuff even from kind of human childhood development. We don't get 3 and 4-year-olds sitting O levels, right? We have sub 6 years old learning through play, engaging with relationships and feeling safe. It's the most important thing. Our expectations with Molly are on us because Molly expects us to keep her safe, to give her a chance to express through her own experimental learning what it is that has value for her. And she expects us to learn what that is. So we can teach her some of the functional stuff down the line. And actually, I found with working with clients that if you want to teach stuff, they're much more responsive now down the line to things you might want to teach, especially when they're older, you know.
Yeah.
Because as you say, if we do loads of stuff now, they're going to forget off it anyways. What's the point?
Yeah, but as you said, it's difficult because we do collectively have an idea in our head of what a good dog looks like, right? Or what we should be doing, or we're not doing enough. But I have a dog. Oh, he's here now, actually. Hunter, you want to say hi?
Hey, buddy. Oh my God, what a gorgeous boy he is.
Hunter is what would be called a res dog. He comes from the Cree Nation of Waswanipi, which is in northern Quebec. So these dogs would have had families, but they lived free. So this is a whole new learning for me and a whole different experience. But I took him into my home. I didn't train him in any way. I didn't. I just kind of, you know, hung out with him, watched him, made sure he was safe. And he's fantastic. Like he was already fantastic, but I didn't have to do anything with him or teach him certain things because he was a free-ranging dog. He has amazing social skills. He has great coping skills. It's a little tough. I know I've curtailed his freedom a lot, which has brought a lot of kind of guilt for me. So we've had to compromise. I try to give him as much as I can, but also keep him safe. But you know, when I think of people when they take rescue in, a lot of the rescues have policies that they have to sign up and have a trainer already lined up by the time they sign their adoption papers and stuff. And I think of like, if we could get to them, and I always say to them, I was like, it's not about training, it's just about watching and learning and responding and reassuring at this point, you know. The sit down, whatever it is you want to do, will come later if you want to do that, if there's a need for that, right? It's always trying to get people to question, okay, well, why, what do you think this will bring for the dog or do for you? And once you get underneath it, really, I think a lot of people just assume that this is what you're supposed to do, so we're going to do it. Whereas if we get them to just slow it all back.
And I think we were talking off air earlier. We haven't got time to go through this now, but it'd be great to have you back, Helen. I think there's a lot for us to talk about. But we were talking about dogs who have come from, come into the country, especially from different kind of backgrounds and different countries. You know, over here we have dogs that are coming from Eastern Europe, and I think a lot of the caregivers are completely unequipped because they're unaware of all the stuff we've talked about today. They have that expectation of what that good dog looks like, and then there is an expectation that they need to do a lot of training with this dog to get that final end product. Whereas where a lot of these dogs are, you know, they've experienced great trauma. They have got it's probably going to take months to decompress just from the journey alone, having to process being in a home. Many of them never been in a home, all the things that go on in the home, that kind of sense of sensory overload, and then we're putting all that training on top of them as well. It's a hard one for them, isn't it?
It's really difficult because, yeah, like there's so much going on there. Some of these dogs could have been street dogs. I've had clients who these were dogs that were in massive shelters, like with 300 plus dogs, and they've been there for a few years. And as we said earlier, like, I'm sure the intention from the rescue is good. It's a good thing, but a lot of the rescues here are not even meeting these dogs. They are facilitating the travel. These carers are showing up at the airport, taking this dog in, and some of them have never had a dog in their lives, and they're getting a dog that is just so stressed out and experiencing like post-traumatic stress symptoms almost, because, and I always get people to think, I'm like, imagine you're fast asleep in your bed and someone just comes in and grabs you and you're thrown on a flight and you wake up somewhere and it's all different. It smells different, the climate is different, no one speaks your language. Like, it's so overwhelming, and they need time to just land and have a soft place to just, as you said, decompress, and even just start to feel safe before we can even think about trying to do things. Because Amber Batson has been, she's my like professional crush because she goes so into the neuroscience, and it's fascinating. And she always talks about how you can't train until you heal the brain, because they're not going to be in a place where they can have that learning brain or that social brain. So you have to give them the chance to completely rest and recover and heal the brain, and then start to teach them some life skills, you know. But going straight to a group training class where they're in an environment with other dogs and people and all that stuff is just not going to help them in that situation.
And I think it's a recognition as well about the kind of corruption of safety for these dogs. So if you imagine a dog that's like, say, a street dog who would had a really good way to be able to process the environment, especially social engagement, really good at social threat evaluation, being able to kind of coexist with other dogs in a very kind of healthy way, to then be put into a pound with a bunch of loads of other stressed dogs who are not acting like that now. So this kind of preconception of safety has just been turned on its head. And I think this is why we find a lot of dogs, I find a lot of dogs anyway, who have come from the streets in Eastern Europe, who come over here, who really struggle with social engagement with dogs now. And this is that trauma, but this is what trauma does. It kind of can turn things on its head, really. So there's a lot of things we need to unpack. And I think having people like Rachel Leather and Daniel Lebec and others who talk a lot about trauma, we need to draw on all these different areas to bring these things through, really. But ultimately learn from the dog in front, to take all these things and then learn from the dog in front of us.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and just acknowledging that they're an individual and that each one of them has a very specific set of needs, you know, and explaining to people too that trauma is not necessarily neglect or abuse or, you know, anything like that. Trauma is unmet needs when they were very young. And with the breeding practices and different things, you know, the demand for puppies, a lot of dogs are starting off in this world with trauma because, you know, they're in dire conditions or they're taken away from their mothers ridiculously early and they're not getting any sort of, you know, any of that enrichment or things that they need for proper physical and mental development. So trauma, everyone needs to be trauma informed now because it's from my inbox, it's rife. Like there's so many dogs dealing with chronic anxiety and like there's so many medicated dogs. It's just, it's become a crisis at this point, I think. So we definitely need to be more informed from that perspective.
And I think a sudden corruption of an individual's worldview, a sudden challenge to that, is in itself deeply traumatic. You know, we see it with children, especially who felt that they were part of a loving, safe relationship, and then parents split. That sudden corruption of a safe worldview is just changed instantly. So when you think about dogs taken off the street, coming from abroad, or even a dog just being rehomed, that previous home may not have been great, who knows, but it's what the dog knew, and it's an element of that kind of dog's belief system, if you like, or whatever it perceived to be the environment to feel safe.
And emotional attachments that are severed, right? And then you have rescue dogs who may have gone through, you know, a bunch of foster homes and different things, and each time another bond is smashed, and that's adding even more insecurity. And then you think about a dog in that situation, and the common advice given to those is, oh, you know, crate them and do different things. And it's like isolation is probably the worst thing for these dogs, right?
Yeah, and I think this is coming back to your scent den and activities like free work and that kind of thing, giving I talk about relief a lot because I think it's a really important principle in the psychology of behavior, and giving these dogs that little window of that moment of relief where they can think, I can work this through myself. I can deal with this myself. It can be really transformative for dogs. Those small little building blocks that are their way out of finding a new element of resilience for themselves.
Yeah, it's lovely to watch because you can see them. Their whole demeanor changes. You know, they feel like they've done something really good, and yeah, it's amazing to watch.
Well, Helen, I can't believe it. That's an hour. I just can't believe it. That's just absolutely flown by. And there's tons. I've been making notes, and there's lots of things. What would be good? I think I'd definitely love to have you back.
Brilliant.
That would be ace. And it'd be great for you to share some of your stuff in the group if you're happy to do that. I think that's great.
Absolutely.
Before we go, what do you think? We've kind of said it really, I know, but where do you want to see us going as a community, as an industry over the next kind of 5 to 10 years, bearing in mind all these extra bits that are coming? What do you think are the main things that need to shift for us?
So I would love to see, for people say that we're planning to get dogs, for us, between all of us who have all this great information, to have resources for them to kind of almost go through like a course before they bring the dog home, you know, to introduce them to things like the ethogram of the dog. What are the natural set of behaviors for that dog when it comes to food, when it comes to sleep, when it comes to exercise and being social? What do we know that dogs like to do that live free? Because I think I always tie that into my behavior consults with people, and I send them off to learn about the Sindor's treaties and send them off to learn about different things, because it's important for them to know that this is what a dog is, and also, who is your dog? I really want the carers to become the students, essentially, is what I'm trying to say, because we need to update our knowledge and our skill set, because we're in a new paradigm now, I think, where people are starting to go, okay, there's a lot more to this, and we need to really get to know these animals for, you know, who they are and what their needs are. How can we meet the needs? Because after this whole conversation, I think we know that, yes, we bring on a lot of the problem behaviors that we go to professionals for. And if we could understand the needs that these individual dogs have from a young age and provide for these needs, we're not likely to see the manifestation of these behaviors, right?
100%, and that's the biggest thing for me. And I think it's the biggest area of awareness that we have to invite our colleagues to think about. What are we doing with these dogs sub 6 months? What do we think is actually our priorities for these dogs? And it's a big ask, Helen, because you know we have a big industry based on that.
And just getting people to be curious. Like people will often say, well, I want to do X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, okay, tell me more about that. Like, why do you want to do it? Who does it serve? Is this for you, or is this for your dog, right? You know, because a lot of the time, you know, things that we're doing with dogs, we're kind of doing them to, you know, save time. Like they're walking the kids to school in the morning, or they're running beside the bike, or they're jogging. So who's that really for? And when you get them to start kind of breaking it down like that, and given the choice, do you think your dog would like to do this or do this?
And I think this is where it's a bit tricky, isn't it? Because actually, when we step back and think about the psychology of dog ownership, where we kind of are at, especially in Western cultures, there's a lot of stuff that has to be broken down before we can rebuild again. There's a lot of things to consider. And the reasons why people get dogs in the first place, there's already the whole psychology there, right? We have to think about big topics. And I think this is why we need multiple voices, right? And we've referenced a lot of great people today as well, Helen, and I really appreciate your time today. I just think you're so inspiring, Helen. I love listening to you talk. I love your passion, and it'd be great to get you back again. And thank you again for today.
Appreciate it, Andrew. Delighted to be here. Thanks so much.
So we've got Kathy Murphy next, coming in a couple of weeks' time. We've got Sindor. I'm going to be putting the events up for November, end of October, November. We've got Dawn Allen as well, and Emily. We've got loads of people coming up. We've got Sarah Fisher coming up before Christmas, hopefully. That'll be a nice little Christmas present. So thank you everybody for tuning in today. Thanks again to Helen, and see you all soon.